Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Good morning, G.
Hey, what's up, my sober-loving brother?
Hi, what's happening with you, man?
Not much, man. I just want to put my finger on your pulse today because I'm sitting there wondering. I know you're always and you love being and you are always the smartest guy in the room.
Huh.
But as we're in the coffee shop today,
Right.
we have a table for three. I'll let you do the proper introduction.
Right.
But Ph.D.
I know.
So do you feel intimidated or
No, because mine.
are you here to learn?
I was an ASS. And
ASS?
yes, I carried
ASS degree?
Michael Rhodes ASS. But that got me. That behavior got me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, not at the top of the class.
You know, here's what I heard.
Yeah.
If you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
You don't learn if you're the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah. You know what? You want to see this tremendous play on words I'm about to?
Here we go.
I'm a little worried about this morning.
That is a big play on words. Speaking of which,
yes.
we did an episode recently, A Night with Blue October.
Yeah, which was awesome, right?
And
right.
one of their songs is Worry List.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that song focused on everybody else was worried about us and
That's
our
right.
condition and our alcoholism
Yeah.
and, you know, and our progressive drive to hell, right?
Yeah.
And this is going to take a little different turn. You know,
It
I'll let you
is.
tee it up, but
Yeah.
it's more how we worry,
Yeah.
right?
Right. And no, I think that's amazing because people did worry about us for years.
My gosh.
And you know, here's the irony. I'm now worried about other people that have addiction problems that are surrounding me in my life. I worry about the new kid coming into the rooms of AA. I worry about certain family members. Are they going to see the light before they see death, you know? And
Well, maybe we can
that's
sharpen
a
the pencil and learn something today. And,
yeah.
And maybe worry less.
That's a great point. So
In fact, worry less now, Mike.
That's right. So I want to say this right. And we have Gigi Langer, Ph.D. in the rooms with us. Gigi, good morning.
Hi, Gigi.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Doing fantastic. I had the pleasure of doing a pre-coffee conversation with Gigi, and I just walked away from it. There's something very soothing and calming about where you're at in life. And I don't know, maybe you run around and scream when you're not on the phone with other people but maybe you do that. But I'll tell you, it was just very calming and very reassuring the time we spent because, you know, I'm anxious about this half hour because she's put out a good book. It's called 50 Ways to Worry Less Now. And that's what we're kind of highlighting today. But she's done some other works and just does this work in the community. And she brings to bear conversations about peace and clarity and connection. And just super excited to have you, Gigi. Good morning.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here. I've got my cup of coffee here.
I
I'm
know.
That's
sipping
fantastic.
away.
Yeah, likewise. We got our tall lattes or whatever it is we're drinking. For me, it's just black and with a bunch of cream and sugar in it, of course. But
Yeah, of course.
so what made you write a book? I mean, that's a pretty big undertaking in it, and
Gosh.
it's not a huge book, but it's a very impactful and effective book for the couple, 100 plus pages.
But probably,
it
if
is.
I could jump in,
Yeah, go ahead.
probably, Gigi, just tee us up on a little bit about your recovery path.
Yeah.
Put some context.
Oh, yeah. I was grateful to get sober in 1986
Wow.
after going to a psychologist. During my third marriage, I was drinking and going to bars and picking up strangers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, in my late 30s. And I thought, what the hell is wrong with this picture? I just finished my Ph.D. and then I had this seedy little secret life and lying to my husband. And I thought, there's something wrong with me. So the psychologist said, well, you're in the early stages of alcoholism. Because I didn't drink all day. I didn't drink every night. It was puzzling to me that I could be an alcoholic. But he got the family history and of course, Dad was an alcoholic,
Right, sure.
they went back. So he said, well, try drinking 2 drinks, no more, no less, and see what happens. And I found out that if I had 1 drink, sometimes I would only have a second drink and stop. And other times I would have the first drink, the second, the third, the fourth, close down the bar, find the stranger, pick them up, do this really crazy, endangering stuff, And so after 6 months of that, thank God I lived through it, I, with the therapist, which I stayed with, decided, I was an alcoholic. If I had 1 drink, I couldn't trust myself to take care of myself, take care of others, maintain my relationships. Something bad was going to happen soon. And later I found out he was in a 12-step program. And, he suggested that I go, and I did. It's more complicated than that, but basically when I walked into that first meeting and they were telling my story, and in 1986, it was a bunch of much older men.
Right. Smoking cigars.
Oh,
yeah, it's crazy, right?
And still, I totally related. Now, the next day, I went to a women's meeting, and then I felt more nurtured and hopeful and got phone numbers and so on. But yeah, that's how it happened. And I haven't had a drink since, and I'm so grateful.
Love it.
I do my footwork even now because I have to keep my head screwed on straight.
Right.
And that's why I wrote the book, because just because I stopped drinking and I work the steps doesn't mean I'm going to stop having challenges in my life, being afraid, getting worried. And so basically the book's kind of structured around, here's the first scary thing that happened. I had a health problems, back problems, stress. And then I found these tools to help, which, if we're continuing to work the program, they just kind of come to us. And so that's how all the tools ended up in the book. I needed them when I needed them, and then I put them all in the book and how I found them and how other people could use them.
Yeah, it's good. And the book is it's not a novel. It's a workbook. And throughout the book, there are calls for time for action. And, which I really appreciated, because it's like, okay, get your pen to paper. Answer these questions, do these tasks. It's time for action, because we can work ourselves through worry, right? If we have a process that's appropriate and healthy, right?
Exactly. I think it's all about, we can't beat up on ourselves for getting scared or getting worried or being freaked out by life. That's going to happen. It's what we do next.
Right.
And sometimes I might be in a bad mood or freaked out or something's bothering me. It might take several days before I kind of wake up and say, oh, I need to up my meetings. I need to call my sponsor. I need to use the tool of tapping, for example. It's not like you never worry again.
Right.
It's like when stuff happens, we don't have to drink over it because we have other ways of helping ourselves through it without being self-destructive.
Right. And I love the fact that you focus on the worry part, because, there's all these emotions that I'm coming to grips with now in my sobriety, fear and anger and then worry. Worry just keeps coming back. And it's like, it doesn't make sense to me to worry, but I worry anyway. Does that make sense, Glenn?
Yeah. So when I hear the word worry, right, and one of the things, one of the words in the book is peace, right? So the way I define peace, and Gigi, I'm still trying to learn out what some of these words mean, right? Like happiness. I'm still trying to figure what does that mean, right? But I have defined peace, and the way I define peace is it's a snippet in time, because I don't live every day, every minute in peace. I remember I was a couple years in sobriety, and one night I just had like 5 minutes of, and I point to that as peace. And it was just a feeling where everything in my life at that period of time was okay. It wasn't fantastic. It wasn't excellent, how I like to, all those big words. It was just okay. And then after 5 minutes, it went away, but it was so defining for me. I said, you know what? that is what I want to live towards. And I know if I keep doing the right things, actions, I'm going to get that back.
Right.
And it was a couple months, and it came back, again, just a snippet, but I was able to latch on, and it gave me hope that, hey, if I just keep walking, right? Mm-hmm. And so if I look at the word worry, mm-hmm. Worry, for me is when maybe everything's not okay, mm-hmm. right? And it starts to throw me into the negative thinking, and right? And so I would almost call, and I've looked at relapse, and a lot of people think of relapse as being putting a bottle to my mouth and drinking. And yes, that's probably the physical relapse, mm-hmm. but there's emotional relapse. Mm-hmm. And then there's the mental relapse. The emotional relapse is is where worry sets in. That's like where worry and anxiousness mm-hmm. and negative thinking and starts to get me off, right? And then there's the mental that, hey, remember back then when you were feeling like this, you'd have a drink, and remember how great that drink, man, just for the first half hour, just took all that away. Remember that relief? That's like the romanticizing. Mm-hmm. And then there's, hey, I'm going to the liquor store.
So the physical, right.
So there's a couple words that I pick up on. I will say for me in general, I worry a lot less today. Mm-hmm. Probably because I'm aware, probably because I do have tools, and I'm very conscious of when I'm in that emotional relapse. And worry is a part of that emotional relapse. And a lot of times I worry about things I can't control.
Right.
And so at least I can process that now. So, I think it's great to tear this apart.
Right. So what are some of the things you would recommend to me who worries a little more than my counterpart Glenn here, who obviously has got this thing figured out. But so I'll still worry about ridiculous things that are totally outside my control. Somebody else's drinking habit. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I worry about them. I worry about their physical health. I worry about their mental state. I worry about their employment. I worry about their relationships that they have.
I think that's worth tearing apart.
Right. What would you recommend to me, Gigi, to help me begin to process that? I know there's not a magic pill to take, and I know a drink isn't going to fix it. So where do I go? Where do I go?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. My husband, whom I hadn't ever seen drink, 3 years before I published the book, he started drinking again. And so I went to Al-Anon because I'd been in the 12 steps long enough to know that's where you go.
Right.
And I worked through the steps, and I ended up feeling at peace. The whole chapter 6 is about that story and about my inventory where I had ultimately realized I had pasted my father's face onto Peter, my husband, and labeled him as just like my father. And therefore I was, completely a victim. And through the 12 steps, I ended up being at peace with him having 2 drinks and no more, which was a surprising outcome because you wouldn't think a person in recovery. He had been into cocaine mostly. So
sure, right.
I never see him altered, but I don't worry about it. But it was quite a process. And I think, a lot of people in AA, we get to this, we get through stage 1, we save our lives. The process saves our lives. And then stage 2, or what's being called now emotional sobriety, is where when the shit hits the fan, we know what to do. It doesn't mean we don't get knocked off our square and terrified. We do. But we have people around us. We can step up our footwork, more meetings, more prayer, more meditation. I use guided meditations a lot, which is one of the tools like in, there's a lot of them online, but there's ones for courage and ones for fear. And it's just like self-hypnosis. Well, it's letting someone else hypnotize me, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I love guided meditation. The first time I was exposed to that was I relapsed. I was 90 days sober. I relapsed at a work conference. I was in 6 hospitals across the country, and then an 8-day detox. I mean, I couldn't even function inside my brain. I was hurt so bad. And this woman comes in, and she pulls the blinds down. It's like noon, and she puts on this guided meditation. At going to some beach somewhere, and I literally for 30 minutes I found peace in my head, and I was on this beach and found relief, and it was great. And then she turned the lights on and put the shades up, and the pain just came right on back.
All right.
But I mean, there's times I wake up at 2 a.m. and my mind just gets going, and I use guided meditation. I go on YouTube and I search guided meditation, Michelle Sanctuary Cabin in the Woods. I'm in some cabin in the snow. So I love that you said that, man. That is such a peace driver for me.
Yeah.
That is strong.
One of the things I tried to do in the book was give just a teeny bit of research about each technique so that people wouldn't think, oh, why are you suggesting this? Does it work? And there's so much evidence that guided meditations and mindfulness meditation, there's an 8-week course called mindfulness-based stress reduction, which I took after my mother died, and I had an education book in the hopper, and I was, and so there's, in the book, there's, spiritual tools, a lot of which we've learned in the program. There's also some positive thinking kinds of things like visualization. You keep seeing these quarterbacks meditating and visualizing before the game. We can use that also, the law of attraction. There's some really positive stuff there. And then there are the cognitive strategies, which, the research is real clear that we have grooves in our mind that we learned early in life, or maybe we're overly sensitive, whatever it is, that are negative. Living in the wreckage of our future, regretting the past. And we can reprogram those grooves through gratitude lists, guided meditations, etc. That can, that's what happens when we sit in a meeting. We get a positive vision of a life that these other people have that we wish we could have. And we start aspiring to that and seeing that it's possible. And that reprograms. Yeah.
Do you see why I love her?
Totally.
I mean, it's like Zen. It's like Zen on, and again, the book is not very big, but what it does do, it created a bunch of more paperwork for me, right? So I took, the 120 pages, but I probably wrote another 120 pages on top of it, just me getting outside my head and getting it on paper, because like you said, you give a little snippet of guided meditation, but guided meditation is really a tool that can be tapped into multiple times, that you have to learn more about and get one you're comfortable with. And it's just an investment in oneself to live a better life and with less stress.
More of a workbook of action instead of just a novel read.
Exactly. Do you have other Do you have other writings, or is this your only writing?
No, I put out a book last year called Love More Now.
Okay.
And it's not as much strategies as it is stories of me and other people facing life challenges, and then what tools we use to get through them. But I think the key is that when we're afraid, let me say this. I think there's 3 pedestals to long-term sobriety. And I learned this from the wonderful teacher, Karen Casey, who wrote the very first women's meditation book called Each Day a New Beginning, published by Hazelden. And she has just re-released it. It's a wonderful thing. But she works, obviously, the 12 steps. Al-Anon, because we all want to control situations that we have no business trying to control. And then she has a spiritual study, which I had also called, and I'm not recommending this particular spiritual study to everyone, because I think we find our own. But for me, it's called A Course in Miracles. And I'm in a study group. So for long-term sobriety, I think we need to hit on all those cylinders. We need to, but first, we're just trying to save our lives using the 12 steps and working the steps with a sponsor and reading the literature and praying and meditating and going to meetings.
Sure.
It's like we put the deposits, our footwork is putting deposits into the anti-crazy, anti-drinking, anti-worry bank, right? And it's because people want to control everything that's scaring us. And one thing I've learned is, if I don't think so much about what's scaring me, and I do the footwork. I take the actions. I use the tools. I go to my meetings. The other day, I called my sponsor because my husband's about to have surgery on Monday. Terrified. This, by the way, is my fourth husband.
Yeah, right.
We've been married 35 years.
Wow,
Holy cow,
congratulations.
that's great.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Because of my addiction and other things, and I never had children. I couldn't stay married long enough. So I really, it's a beautiful, healthy, long-term relationship. But I used the tools, I called my sponsor. I got on my knees. I prayed and meditated. I went to extra meetings. And what I love, eventually we gained the security to know that if we put enough deposits, if we do work enough actions, footwork related to our sobriety and sanity, it will come, whatever the solution is, the comfort. And that is a huge, instead of trying to control this,
right.
I just do more footwork.
Or the thing that irritates my brother in particular more than anything else is this notion of let it go. And Glenn and I have had the same conversation. Glenn says, yes, let it go, but do something about it. I mean, yes, let it go is part of the process. You need to let it go, but it's not, I'm letting go of the alcoholic in my life and their bad decisions, but I need to do something more than to get to a point of peace that you and Glenn talk about. It takes more than just saying, I let him go. Go crash and burn. It's not that.
That's for sure.
Right. So with your situation that you outlined, worrying about the other, are you starting to get some tools to?
Yes. Today
deploy?
I'm getting him this book. It showed me how to do it. Just doing drills and processing. I mean, it's.
So what are one or two things you're going to do to help you worry less about that situation?
Remanage the expectation. That is the one thing. I mean, managing my expectation was certainly a big thing. I expect them to see the damage that they're doing. And you know what? Guess what, Michael? You didn't see the damage you were doing when you were in the middle of it. But I expect different from them than what really happened in my own life. And so I'm maybe more empathetic. I can connect back to before I took that amazing first step, Gigi, that you talked about, which was saving our life and letting the world know, letting the whole world know I was powerless. I couldn't fix my drink problem. Yep.
Right.
Really
And
good.
it's so scary when something, a loved one is dysfunctional or we're losing our health.
Right.
So many things we can worry about. And you probably saw the big theme of the book. I almost named the book Whispered Lies. Mm-hmm. And I'll explain that in a minute. But I thought people would think it was a bodice ripper romantic novel.
Right. I like it.
So,
that's awesome.
You get more people to read it, right?
Yeah, right. So the whispered lies are those expectations. They're the unenforceable rules that we set up in our minds.
Yeah, right.
That my way, king baby, right? I don't want my husband to be in danger.
Right.
Right? I will fall apart if something happens to my husband in this surgery.
Right.
That's the whispered lie. That's the expectation. He has to be okay or I will fall apart. We demand things of life. And that's where this emotional sobriety writing by Dr. Alan Berger.
Right.
I'm in a study group with some women looking at his books, and they are so good.
So good.
But one of those things is, demands. Bill W. talked about that in his emotional sobriety article. We demand of life what we think will happen to make us and other people happy. And then we have to come back. And so many of the exercises I have in there, one of the most powerful ones, I mean, a lot of them people have never heard of in 12-step programs, but this gal, Byron Katie, has these turnarounds that we can do with our thinking. So if I think my business partner should not keep working because she has cancer and she's tired, that's me setting up a demand, right? Of life.
Right.
And then there's these, is that really true? Well, no, she shouldn't keep working. And then, is it really, really true?
Right.
Well, maybe she should. And then it says, why might that be true? Well, she loves her work. Maybe she's thinking her life will be shorter.
Right.
And she wants to enjoy it. So it helps you reframe some of those demands that we make on life to a more reasonable, softer place. Of course, my favorite tool is what Karen Casey teaches in our Course in Miracles study group. Holy Spirit or God or higher power, help me to see this differently. Change my thinking about this.
Right.
That's a really powerful prayer when we're saying it sincerely.
Absolutely.
Gigi, so we got to wrap up, unfortunately, but you made me, first of all, I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to tell the listeners about a unique offer that you gave our listeners, but I'll talk about that in a second. Why do you give this away? What's it doing for you to give these, all the stuff you're learning, and then you're repackaging it and creating this toolkit for people? Why are you doing it? I mean, do you need the money?
No, I'm great. And publishing a book is very expensive, but I'm just
totally
grateful
is.
that when I was writing it, my higher power had me running up the stairs to the computer. I didn't force myself to do it. So it's, why did I do it? Because my higher power nudged me to do it. I found just the right resources to help out. I had enough money to publish it. I never thought of making money from it because it's very rare to make money from it.
Yeah.
And yet, what I've heard from some therapists is that they use it as a reference book. So if someone says, oh, go use the golden key, well, it's on page X in this book that it teaches you a little lesson plan on how to use the golden key. So a lot of therapists have their patients or clients buy the book, and then they, rather than having to explain, and also sponsors.
Sure.
Sponsors use it too. I don't think in the very first year or two of sobriety, I wouldn't suggest a person skip over the steps and go to this book. I think it's a useful reference at that point, but really working the 12 steps or whatever program you're in with a sponsor and using those tools just to stay sober.
Nicely stated. Nicely stated. Nice foundation. For those that are interested in the book, we can get a link in our resource room, which is www.Sober.Coffee. Excuse me, and then there'll be a link under books, and you're providing a special offer for our listeners. Can you tell them a little bit about that?
Right. Yeah. So the book is free with a PDF workbook that I send in an email.
Awesome PDF workbook.
Thank you. And then, but you have to pay something because I have to pay almost $4 of shipping, and then I have the envelopes and the printing of the book costs. So it's $6.
$6.
And then
cheaper than my latte this morning.
Yeah, and it's a personally signed copy. So
thank you. And how many pages is the reference book? The workbook. I don't know. I know it's thick. Gosh. It's a huge PDF.
Well, I put it, lines to write.
Yes.
So I don't know, maybe 40. It's 20 pages front to back, maybe.
Right. Yeah, it's really, really helpful. I didn't count the pages, but it was very, very helpful. Gigi, thank you so much. Will you maybe come again and talk about love more now?
That's a great idea.
I'd love to.
That's great. Thanks, Gigi.
Great. Yeah, really, really enjoyed having you, and I hope our listeners worry less because of you.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thank you much.
I love the mug.
Whispered Lies.
All right.
Thank
I know
you.
I love
Whispered Lies.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.